Gracious Lord, today we come before you with hearts humbled and open, seeking your presence and your peace. We confess that at times we struggle to understand the depth of your love. Yet, we gratefully receive it. We receive it with faith and with hope. In your mercy, draw near to us, and let your Spirit rest upon all who listen to and watch the Emmaus podcast and the presentations. May every word spoken and every message shared here guide us closer to you, so that we may walk this journey of life in step with you, strengthened by your grace. Fill our souls with peace, O Lord. Ignite our hearts with hope, and remind us always that we do not walk alone. Amen. Hello, and welcome to Emmaus Walk. I am Bishop Jos of the Episcopal Church in Idaho. Today, my guest is Taylor Gonzalez, whom I got to know over a year ago or so while I was visiting with one of my churches in Nampa, Idaho. Taylor, welcome and delighted that you are here. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So I want to introduce Taylor and share a little story about Taylor's life. That way we are all on the same page as we begin this conversation. Taylor is a husband, father, and an artist, confirmed lay minister in the Episcopal Church. He was received and confirmed a few months ago. And Taylor's story is one of redemption and one of grace. After a past marked by addiction and gang life and incarceration, Taylor experienced a radical encounter of God's mercy that transformed his life. Today, he and his wife, Lisa, serve together in ministry, helping people coming out of brokenness by offering prayer, discipleship, and practical support so that they can get through their life, because Taylor can share with them what makes sense to them from his own experience. Taylor is in formation for lay ministry, and God willing, and in the discernment process, if God is calling Taylor for further ministry, we will work through and ask God's guidance and the power of the Holy Spirit to anoint him and help him to see where God is calling him, and help me and the diocese to see where God is calling him. And his family they recently moved to Jerome, Idaho, where we have a small church called Calvary Episcopal Church, and he is doing this renewal ministry at Calvary Episcopal Church as a diocesan mission, and I'm delighted that he and Lisa and the kids are willing to take that risk and move to this place. Taylor has a heart for teaching, and my favorite, of course, teaching I love. I am a teacher myself, but contemplative prayer, which I think is incredibly beautiful if you are entering into ministry, to be spending time with God. So contemplative prayer and walking with others as they encounter the living Christ. And his testimony, as we hear it, and the stories in the future, reflects God's power to restore families and renew lives. And I'm delighted that we have this time with Taylor, and I want to welcome Taylor.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. My name's Taylor, and my family and I, we live in Jerome, Idaho. And I'm just really grateful to be here and to be talking to you right now.
Thank you, Taylor. What I want to do is, before we go into the transformation journey of what happened in your life, I want you to share with the listeners and me your early life and your family, your history, where you came from, and all that growing up life situations. That will be a tremendous help, so that we can actually understand better why you are responding to this call in Jerome.
Yeah, so my family and where I grew up. I'm from Woodland, California. Most of my family still lives in California. And I grew up, I would say, a blended home, but very normal. I think I had a good childhood. I got to go to Disneyland. I know my parents loved me. I have multiple step parents who I consider my parents as well. So I had a blended family. And in my journey, something that was really instrumental in my life was my influence, especially because I'm Californian, and in Cali we're just way ahead of all of you. we're living in the future. But I was exposed from a young age to a lot of different ideas, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different languages. When I was a teenager, I began to, I guess, explore, and I've always been kind of like a warrior or an adventurer or somebody who is on a journey. I'm kind of like I'm like Frodo in the Hobbits, on the way to Mount Doom. So I've been kind of on a journey, and I've always been adventurous. So that has a lot to do with my youth. And I guess to answer the question too is also I was in the streets, and I guess what do I mean by the streets? I mean, as we said in my introduction, drug addiction, crime, violence, gang life, stuff like that, stealing, lying, cheating, stealing, all that. And that kind of is an important part of my life, and also part of my testimony. So
that's not an easy thing to talk about the street life, the stealing or the homelessness and wasted life, all of those pieces that you went through. That must not have been easy. Tell us a little more about how did that happen? How did that form you? And what happened in that process? Because that takes an enormous amount of courage even to speak to somebody that you were homeless and you were wasted, or you had a gang life, drugs, all of those pieces. Help us understand that better. And how do you feel when you speak about it?
So one aspect about living on the streets, especially if you're in California, we live in the United States of America. We are, you can live on the streets by choice. You don't have to live on the streets. So I wouldn't tell you that it was my parents' fault, or even my mentors, or people, my teachers or educators. I wouldn't blame those people. I made those choices, and I was attracted to it for various reasons. Something about the street life that, especially gang life, you have to understand is a lot of us, especially in Christianity, when we reach out to these people, we often have to deal with that identity, but we need to come to terms with how deep it goes. For example, if we had, and I don't mean disrespect to the military or to people who have lost loved ones in military, but for example, say if somebody came into your church and they were wearing a Vietnam vet hat, it would be unfathomable for us to think, hey, you need to renounce being a veteran. You need to renounce being a member of the armed forces, or you take off that Vietnam veteran hat. Don't wear that anymore. It would be rude. It would be inappropriate. Even if you're a pacifist, even if you don't agree with warfare, we respect those people. But what happens to gang members, because they're criminal, because they're essentially terrorists, we don't look at those people the same way. However, it's important. The reason I'm making the analogy is because the same type of young man that wants to be a Navy SEAL, I want to be a bad dude. I want to be a warrior. I'm willing to fight to the death. That same type of aggressiveness and kind of masculine rite of passage, that same initiation is available to young men in the street life, in gang life.
I see.
So you can be initiated into being a man through gang life. And so I pursued that tentatively. I progressively became more and more affiliated. And then eventually, which led to my prison career and getting involved with gang more seriously.
Right. In a way, the gang life was a sort of they became your family and they became part of everything that you did. And so supporting them, being part of them, also must have formed the way how you see the world around you today.
Yeah, particularly and I don't want to expose the gang I was in. I think we could apply this generally. Right. But the gang I was in had a lot.
These stories and conversations, Taylor is sharing with us how God molded him through some of the toughest and scariest moments, and also how he saw God through it all. So, I want to invite you to give space and grace to his story and how God walks with him.
One of the things that I really attached to in the hood was the cause. The cause for the hood, to have a social status of equality. From the time I was very young, this fascinated me. Not even just in the gang, but also I was taught about things like, independence, about slavery, about these. I had a lot of teachers, when I was in first grade in California, our teacher was teaching us about Japan and Japanese culture. There's a lot of things that I was taught and educated in a liberal arts environment that a lot of people in the Midwest or Pacific Northwest may not be aware of. And so when I picked up the cause and became a gang member, initially it was a matter of survival. Because I at the age of about 15, I began to leave home and run away and to be homeless, and that was where I was. So I got hungry. I go steal to eat. I'm bored. I need to go find friends. I need to find sex partners. I need to find women. I need to find all these things, right? And I'm looking for purpose in life. But I always felt like I was looking for freedom.
Right.
And I had a pretty amazing, I could tell you so many amazing stories. When I was 16, I ran away. I made it all the way to the coast of California. I've been through San Francisco. I've lived on the streets in all kinds of crazy places. And I saw a lot of really interesting things. And that's just kind of the story is I was searching for enlightenment, for freedom, for social status.
Right.
And that's where I looked for it. I looked for it in the streets.
Because I think this gang life gave you a purpose, whether that is a good one or bad one. At least it gave you a platform, a place and a community to belong to, support of the people, whether I couldn't call them the wrong people, because circumstances make people where they are. And so that's what I can see, the gangs, that, how they are formed and how you were, because of your own life, family history and life, how you sought for purpose. But all of those experiences also must have given you some strength in understanding the struggles of people today. I want to go back into your life, but I just want to hear a little bit about, so those experiences you had growing up as a child and growing up in the gangs and, drugs and different life situations also might, I'm just wondering, did that help you to understand people who are in gangs, or are you a person who's judgmental to look at them, oh, God, those guys are all lost and gone? Tell us a little more about.
Yeah, I can tell you from, especially once I was in prison, these are people who, I'm talking about my gang members I was affiliated with. These are people who loved me. I had father figures. I had people in my life who were like mentors. who supported me, who provided love for me. That's something that is definitely needed. You can go without food, you can go without even shelter, you can go without a lot of the luxuries, but you cannot go without love. Love is necessary, and so that's where I was able to find that, was because I also had, crippling, at this point, by the time I was 15, 16, I was already having a crippling struggle with drugs, alcohol, stealing, lying, cheating, all that type of stuff. And there was a phase where on my mom's side, they moved to Idaho, but my dad's side stayed in California. And through my teens, I was kind of just back and forth a little bit. And then once I was 17, at the suggestion of my Aunt Christina, I love my Aunt Christina, and she's like a mother figure to me as well. And I ended up staying at her house, and she took a look at my scenario, and she realized, like, things are not going good. They found me in the streets in Woodland, and they took me to Davis, and I stayed with my aunt and uncle for a little while, and she persuaded me the thing to do is to try to go back to normal, go back. Your mom's in Idaho, try to contact and get back in touch, and you should just get a bus ticket, a plane or something, and go home. And so I returned home, and I was 17. I started going to high school in Nampa, Idaho. But they say that you can take somebody out of the hood, but you can't take the hood out of somebody. And so sorry about the alarm.
That's okay.
They're coming for me.
That's right.
I've said too much.
That's right. I know.
All right.
That's scary.
Anyways,
yeah.
I ended up, basically, I thought I could change. I remember, it's funny, I'll tell you this. I remember thinking I'm gonna rebrand myself. And I went to Idaho, and I remember thinking I'm gonna be a square. But all I could think of at that time was Kanye West was popular at that time.
I see.
You remember he used to have turtle sweaters and watches, and he had kind of this preppy look. He had like a preppy kind of look. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna buy polos and sweater vests, and I'm gonna go to Idaho, and no one will know. No one will know that. That didn't work at all. In a short period of time, I was essentially taking my Californian gang life, and I didn't think it was gang life, but it really was.
Right.
I just applied the criminal mentality to living in Idaho now. So in a short period of time, I was in touch with every single high schooler in Nampa who shot dope or robbed houses or did lived the hardcore life. And anybody who was a minor that was my age that was involved in the hardcore lifestyle, I immediately ended up with these people.
Yeah.
And so it didn't work.
Yeah. It's so, that's interesting. You said you thought you could actually rebrand yourself into a new identity, a new way of life. I just want to touch upon that, and as you were sharing, what was going on in my brain was the hardcore life of all the different things that you listed, from stealing, homelessness, all the way to gang life, and everything that you went through led you to prison. At the end of the day, led you to prison. And my first question, I have two questions in that connection. One, do you think God can actually transform people who are into all these, all different things that they go through in life? Second, how did God, if that is possible, of course you have a story about that, how is it possible, or how did God transform your life? Because I think that is a struggle a lot of people have, that God doesn't actually interact with individual concerns or individual lives. I hear that all the time. So help us understand that better.
Yes. So in the Bible, there's a word, it says Jehovah Jireh, or Yahweh Jireh, and it means God is my provider. And some people say, they're more conservative, say, well, he provided Jesus Christ, so that's it. Don't go beyond that, because now you're teaching prosperity. But there's also a stream where you could think, God's my provider, I need food, and a lot of times, you can ask drug addicts. I had a conversation with somebody the other day who struggling with using heroin, fentanyl. And the thing about it is, we have, there's social media, there's a lot of information out there. By the time you're slamming heroin or fentanyl, if somebody walked in on you and said, hey, do you know that that's dangerous? They'd put the needle, oh, I didn't know this was dangerous. People know that they're hurting themselves. They know that they're trapped, and it becomes like, you need water, you need food, you need shelter, you need dope, you need the streets, you need this approval from other people. And so that's a big thing. And I think when you're talking about transformation, what I also think of is Jesus. Have you heard of Jesus was transfigured? He was transfiguration. And as I've converted to Christianity in my adult years when I was 26, I've begun to look back now at my childhood and my life, because by the time I was old enough to start thinking more in, gaining my individualism, I began to adopt atheism, because my household wasn't explicitly religious. And so, and I had some relatives, an uncle that was an atheist who is my favorite uncle, and he was just a great influence to me. And he went to college in Santa Cruz, California. And my Uncle Ryan, I love him. He's awesome. He's a atheist. And so we would talk, and he would share like things he had learned. And I remember just being like, wow, this is like, makes a lot of sense. So I already was kind of like, the God thing was for me for years. But it's crazy, because since I've converted, I look back now, and what I see, it's like my history is becoming Christed. It's getting re-Christed. All of it was Christ.
That's a beautiful terminology, Christed. Yes, go for it. Yes.
It's all Christed. So I'll give you an example, okay? I was on the run, and I was about 19, going on 20. I went on the run from the law, and I ran back to Cali. And when I was in California, I lived in this little coastal town called Point Arena. And I slept in the forest, I slept under bushes, and I was just living in the streets out there. Well, there is this fence, and it's crazy, because I would go back to this fence multiple times. And this is the coast, it's all wild and stuff. But I honestly wanted beer money. That's all I wanted. All I lived on was drinking beer and smoking and all that. And so I wanted beer money. And so I would go to this fence, and I would look down at the fence, and the wind would somehow pick up dollars from God knows where and put them there. And it would put them there. And so I'm just like, things like that, I go back and I'm like, are you serious? Like, are you telling me that was just like luck? I mean, God's been looking out for me and providing for me when I needed beer money. Christ was looking out for me. It's not that he wanted to get me beer money.
Right.
It's that I'm being taken care of. I'm provided for. And the more you begin to acknowledge that, you are acknowledging Jesus Christ. You are acknowledging the work that he did on the cross.
Right.
It's not a contradiction because a desperate person wants to own a house, or a desperate person wants food or a nice car. God likes us. He's interested in us and what we do. Right. And so it's not like I just have the transformation language is good, but I see it more like I'm looking back and I'm seeing a lot of Christ.
I think what it is you are able to actually identify God moments even though
God
those
moment.
are things, yeah, those are times that you did not think that was true. For some reason, I think the world today, because of all the rationalization that we have around God experience or church experience or the hurts that they have experienced, those God moments are not recognized, they are not identified or acknowledged, because we feel like if we do that, we become very churchy, or there is such a fear. But the reality is God was watching over you one way or another. You were in the realm, just like God is watching over everybody, but you recognized, you were Christed, and you recognized. That's a great term.
I was Christed.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, and I guess if we're going to talk about separation, there is all kinds of theological views on separation or how we are separated. And I believe that the separation between us and God, or the language of wrath, especially when we talk about ascribing emotions to the immutable, omnipotent, omnipresent God. A lot of this is artistic rendering. It's an artistic thing. Jesus said, I'm talking to you about earthly things, because if I talked to you about heavenly things, you would not comprehend it. We see through a glass darkly, but then face to face when we pass from this to the next. So what happens is, it's a separation, yes, and I think using wrath language is acceptable, but I've begun to use the term delusion. There's a delusion between man and God. And that delusion is that man is separated from God when we move and live and breathe and have our being in him. So recognizing that not just your conversion as, turning an on and off switch, like, okay, God was off and now suddenly God exists. And so it's about kind of reforming in your mind or in your heart where God was. And, we have some clues. John said that God is love. So we can look back and moments where we were able to get glimpses of love or find the genuine thing where we feel like that was love. We can find God in that.
Yeah, this is absolutely. I am just fascinated by the terminology that you used. I got stuck on Christed, and now I'm stuck on the word delusion that we have, that we are separated from God. That's a delusion. Actually, that truly is a delusion, because the Spirit of God is within us and God is in us. And when we go into all theological and nuances of that one sentence, this makes absolutely perfect sense. The delusion that we live in. But before we go there, I want to hear your transformation story. So you lived this way on the streets, you had your struggles, and that took you to the jail. In jail, when you were in prison, what happened? How did you find God, or what happened in that journey?
Yeah. So in prison, I began to, obviously, I had a decision to make, because when you go to prison, if you have, it's kind of like street stuff. If you're on the streets doing whatever, that's kiddie stuff. But this is the big leagues. And so I had to make a decision. And I felt that since I had crashed my life so bad, as far as being a square, I ain't gonna have a job, I'm probably gonna have a career, all these thoughts were in me, and self-doubt and insecurity. And I saw an opportunity to be somebody. I saw a chance that I could be a homeboy. I could be validated. I could be something in here, and I could make a career here. And I had a lot of my peers who also had preceded me into prison. It was a surreal experience. I remember getting into prison extremely afraid. Like, I wouldn't have admitted I was scared, but that's what it was. I was scared, right. Nervous, super nervous. And when I walk in a period of time, I began to like realize months are going by and I'm like having a great time. Like it's sad, but that was like, it was like I was finally where I belong. And it really was part of my delusion. It was part of my delusion because I thought that I was locked up. I thought I was chained up. I thought I was bound. But God, this is the delusion. But God says that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. God says that I'm a child of God. He says that I'm chosen, that I'm called. He says, and what he says is the truth. And it was as I was going into deeper into my delusion, there was kind of moments of like serendipity where I'd have kind of like a clarity, because during this time, again, like I said, I maintained like happiness and fun. I maintained, I'm still similar. I'm still like the same kind of guy. I wasn't like, yeah, dog, what's up, dude? You know, maybe sometimes when I was being more eccentric, but I was always this dude. I didn't just become this guy. I was always acting this way, more subdued. And then as I got into prison, I was involved with the prison gang. I made the call to get in officially, and you got to put in work. Right. That's the way it is in the joint. If you're gonna ride in the car, you got to put in work. And so I do what I got to do, and that gets you more time. That gets you bigger sentences. It gets you parole gets revoked. You're not going to parole out. So what happens is the prison system will filter. They're pretty smart about it. They know, they can look at statistics and they can see that like, oh, young men under the age of 33 or whatever, those are like the most aggressive. So they'll make sure to put us all together. And then when clashes happen, they have a way to filter us until you end up in a place called maximum security. Okay. And once I ended up in maximum security, that's 24 hours locked down. You don't have a cellie. You don't get to go outside. But that was by design built to break you. It was built to try to break your aggression, to tamp you down. Because when you're so aggressive, which I don't know if I was emotionally aggressive, it was more like it was a tool I had to use. Yes. It's like, I know that I'm small and I know that I'm skinny, and in the gang I was affiliated with, this is a small gang. We're overwhelmed, so I gotta be like twice as aggressive. Right. I gotta initiate the violence. And so that's how I ended up in a place called ADSEG. If you know anything about ADSEG, if you've ever heard that term, it's similar to the hole. Have you ever heard of someone going in the hole? Yeah, I've heard, yeah. Right, you know, you fight and then they send you the hole for a week or whatever. Well, ADSEG is when they prove that you are either helping to run a system or you're involved with some kind of organization, a criminal organization, and they want to send you to ADSEG. Because there they can separate you from the rest of the population, and you can't influence the other people to kind of join the bandwagon. So you got into this isolation, or you are separated for your safety or their own system way of separating people. So what happened? How did you find God in the midst of that? Because that's a time of loneliness and anger and disappointment and rejection by the community, not only in the cell system, that's one, but the people who should have protected you put you aside. So tell us what happened for you to find God there. So I'm in ADSEG, and the day I went to my cell, I had a choice. I could go to cell 50 or cell 51. The dude who was in the cell before me, he paroled out, and he left all his stuff in there, and he left a TV in there, which is like a prized possession. Yeah. You're trapped in a room, right? Wow. And they let you know, they're like, you're going to be here 18 months or whatever. They'll usually tell you how long you're going to be stuck. Sometimes 5 years. 5 years is the most they can do. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to be here for 18 months. And I remembered we were in the midst of a lot of gang violence. We were at there was politics in the gang, and it was a really hazardous time. And so I remember looking, and I could pick the cell. I could have took the cell with the TV. And I remember I envisioned myself over here in this room watching TV for 18 months. Then I envisioned myself in this cell over here. You know, I'm doing push-ups, and I'm gonna get all buffed out, and I'm gonna come out and snap someone's neck. You know, that's how I was thinking.
Right.
And so I'm like, yeah, I'm going over to this cell. I made a call. I made a call to just go to that cell with nothing. And eventually I got off of, because when you first get there, that you're kind of on a secured status. Eventually I got my privileges where I could put in kites for the library. And this is where I really started working on my education. I got a GED during that time. I began to study. I began to read extensively. I think I was beginning to have like a spiritual awakening, but I sought it more. Initially, I assumed that Christianity was just kind of a lame religion for like, it's for the white people, or you know, that's how I thought. I mean, even though I'm half white, that's how I thought. I was racist, and I felt like, oh, that's just a generic. Or so I started looking into like existentialism. I was reading like Nietzsche, other philosophers, stuff like that, right? I even grabbed the Quran one time, the Book of Mormon. And when I began to become a really strong reader, a prolific reader, I would eventually got to this phase where I could open a book and read about 10 pages. And if I can already figure out what the ending is, I just get rid of the book, because I'm like, all right, it's all good.
Okay.
And so I was attracted to mystery. And that's really something. I love beauty. I love mystery. I love art, obviously. That's something I do. And one day, somebody comes for a visitation, knocks on my door. I go to my window, and a gentleman who goes by the name Porphyrius, he was an Eastern Orthodox monk. He's standing at my door.
I see.
Like dressed in a black robe with a giant white beard and a bald. And I'm looking at this like, what in the world? Like, you know, it's like, whoa. And
you didn't know this guy though?
No.
Okay.
He just, bless his heart, he went to do visitations, and the opportunity came up Acts, which is like probably the most unpopular place to go minister, because everyone rejects you. You know, if you go there, I might not recommend, unless you really feel called to do that. It's most people there don't want to hear you. And but he said something, and it was interesting because I was so just brainwashed with my idolatry for my cause that I thought I had. He mentioned some things, and I've talked to you about this. He mentioned certain things, because you know how gangs work. We got numbers, we got colors, we have certain hairdos, all kinds of stuff like that, certain tattoos. He mentioned some things when he was talking about, he had some tracts, he had some tracts to pray, and he had one about the Jesus prayer.
Okay.
And he had mentioned a certain amount of times that he recommended I pray it a day, and it matched my gang numbers. And I was like, let me hear this. And so I took the tracts. I said, sure, give them to me. And I wanted to show the boys. I'm like, I wanted to try to show the boys, look, they got these prayers that match up to our homies. They can match up to our stuff. And I started praying. I started doing it kind of benignly, not really like, I still believed I was an atheist at this time. But I was kind of benignly doing things, bowing 12 times north, bowing 12 times east, bowing 12 south, 12 times west, all that. I was doing like these little routines that were written on this pamphlet. And so I read the Bible a bunch of times. And eventually I got out of prison. Wasn't fully sold on the faith, but I was interested. Once I picked up that Bible, it was like I couldn't put it down. I was just like, you know, I had read a lot of other spiritual literature, but the Bible was so kind of, it was like weird, because, you know, there's a lot of spiritual literature that kind of reads like systematic theologies. But the Bible doesn't read that way, at least not directly. it's like a story. It's a narrative. Like once upon a time, Abraham, he leaves Ur and he goes here, and like, what's going on? And then the guy's like trying to give his wife away to Egyptians, and I'm like, what is going on here? What's the point of this? I couldn't put it down. I couldn't put the book down. I read it, reread it. I get out of prison, and the homies backed me up, helped me. I got money. They helped me get work. But it was kind of like a moment of like an identity crisis again. Kind of like back when I was 17. I want to rebrand, but I'm like, how much can I?
Right.
And so what I began to see at a certain point, my card got pulled, and eventually I was confronted, kind of like, okay, we can see you're like trying to go to church and you're doing some things different. And eventually I just had to come out and be like, hey, I'm dropping out. I want to be Christian. I can't have these two lives. They contradict each other. And I had lived for a long time, very paranoid, constantly paranoid, watching my back, looking over my shoulder. I have to carry a knife. I had to have a gun. I had to be ready to fight. But something that was very important to me, I think I've spoke to you about this. I had a dramatic experience in prison as well, where I would say it was a mental breakdown. I had visions, I had dreams, and they just radically changed my outlook. I'll share this. I had a visitation with the Lord. There was somebody who murdered a friend of mine, and he was in the same unit as me. And he went to court, and on the day he went to court, he came back, and I knew he was going to get sentenced for a lot of time. And I was so filled with hate and anger that
before you go further,
sorry
no, that's okay. No, is it okay for you to share that story? That's up to you, because I want to make sure you feel comfortable or safe to share that.
Yeah, let me just tell you like this. So he came in, and I went to my cell. And in your cell you have vents,
right? And
through the vents you can hear to other people's cells. And I knew I could hear directly to his cell. And I was so degenerate in my heart. I wanted to go and wait and listen. I wanted to hear him cry. I wanted to hear his frustration. I wanted to hear his pain. Because that's a bad feeling when you're in prison and you get more time. It's devastating. And so I wanted to hear him suffer. I really had murder in my heart. I went to listen to his vent, and I can't explain it to you any other way than this. I was listening. I heard an audible voice through the vent, and it said, "Love your enemies." And I was spooked. I jumped down from the bench, and I was like, "What the heck did I just hear?" It was like, there's a scripture that says the word of God is sharper than a two-edged sword. I like to read different translations. I've read a translation. I like the way it says. It actually says that the words spoken by God are sharp as a sword.
Wow.
And it was the voice of God.
Yeah.
And I did not know. And he was in that place with me. About a week or two goes by, and this is amazing. I was taken to the shower, and in Max, what they do is they take you down, they put you in the shower, and they lock the door. You have to go in your underwear, fully shackled in your ankles, your waist, your everything. You're just tied up. You're hog-tied. And they took me to the bathroom. They took my shackles off, put me in the shower, and then left. Well, then they took him out, and he was going to see an attorney or something like that. And when they took him out, the guard got a call, and on that call he had to leave. Something was going on, and so what he did was, this person is shackled up fully, because it's how it is in Max. They shackle him up to the staircase, and the guard leaves. But when he goes to open the door to leave the unit and go in the bubble, something goes wrong, and they press a button wrong, or a malfunction. I don't know how, but I'm looking out there and I can hear the sound. My door clicks and it unlocks open. And now I'm here and he's tied up and I can get him.
Jeez. Yeah.
And I just was looking, and I remember, Jos, I remember I grabbed the handle, I shut the door, and I turned around, and the whole shower, it's all painted white in there, and you just have a big bright, surgical light, and it's so bright white. And I turned around, I just fell down and just cried. I just cried. And I remember when they took me out of the shower and I walked past this person, he was looking at me. He hated me too. He looked at me with hate. And I remember looking at him, and I don't know if I composed myself, but I remember looking and I was just like, what's happened to me? What has happened to me? Because something changed. And for several months, so even leaving prison, and sometimes even to this day, like guilt and repressed memories and repressed shame still comes up. But I can tell you, prior to this, I feel like I had this ruthlessness, like coldness, like I could just do this. I could do something. I could hurt another person without remorse. But I knew that I couldn't do it, and I made a vow of pacifism. And I felt this was my introduction to discipleship. And it was the Holy Spirit teaching me. And when I left that place, it took time. I can't tell you that it was so instantaneous. I still was involved with negative things even upon release. Out here I was, and I was with drug dealers and other things like this, and I was seeing us influence young people. And it was even cooler now, because now I went to the joint and I got out and I did a good job. I was a success story. And a lot of homies appreciated that I was also like sober and doing some God stuff. They were like, that's a good thing. But it also was playing into, see, youngster, like Taylor can do this. You can be down and be a family guy, be a family man. And so that came to a halt at a certain point in time. Like I said, I got confronted, and it was just like, hands up, I'm a pacifist.
Right. So I think what has happened is the strength for you to break the chains and break away came from God. There is no other way to explain it. Whether that happened in the prison, or God had been, watching over you for years before, and dropping $1 or $2 on the fence to tell you that I'm still here. I know that you're going through the struggle, or you have the pain, or you don't have the money, but you have not been abandoned. All of those things are actually making sense in the journey that you have taken, and God is fully present in our lives. And that is the testimony, or that is what I'm hearing when you're saying, even at the darkest moments of our lives, the darkest moments, that you are still finding God's hand through the hardest things that has happened. You said there are memories that you have repressed, there are things that have been hidden that makes you feel guilty to this day. Even that is an incredible awareness, a self-awareness. I often say to people, the greatest gift that we could have in life is to be self-aware of what is going on in our own lives. And when you say that, my God, that was a gift of Solomon. That was a gift of David. That was a gift of Peter after denying Jesus. That was a gift
Come
of
on.
John. Self-awareness that I'm broken. I have failed. Doesn't mean we are wretched people. We are still beloved of God. I think that must have really strengthened your journey going forward after you came out of the prison. All of those things, that because you are a critical thinker, you are someone who is able to read and then find different perspectives on the same topic. That's who you are, from what I've heard from you. Would you say that? That's how you feel God's presence in your life?
Yes, sir. That is really, you're getting to the root of everything. It's all about the cross. It's all about Christ and Him crucified. And that doesn't always look like me telling you, 1 Corinthians 15. It doesn't always look that way. But as I was saying, I've talked to you about this before. As I look back and we're seeing that my life is Christed, and even as an atheist, Christ is in it. And as I'm beginning to open up my eyes and God's bringing my vision back to me, I can see. I'm looking in the past, and what I'm seeing is that I have been so critical. I think what happened to me is I began looking too much into things and having to be too cerebral, I may have been very intelligent or I proficient reader, but there was a severe lack in my spiritual awareness. And that's what it's about. There's a song I love to sing. It's Holy Spirit, You Are Welcome Here. And I really enjoy singing the bridge. The bridge goes, let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness, because the glory of His goodness is there whether you are experiencing it or not. His presence is there whether you're aware of it or not.
Very true.
And so opening up my heart, opening up my soul, and letting go of the hindrances, the things that were weighing you down. And it comes down to this. There's a lot of perspectives about the atonement and about Jesus crucified. One of my favorites is the solidarity. Because when I look at Jesus, He doesn't have a golden crown on. He has a crown of thorns. He's not buffed out and beaten up the bad guys. He's crucified. He's mocked. He's rejected by His own. He came to His own, and His own received Him not. He's and what is beautiful about that is there's another scripture that says that He will not quench a smoking ember. He won't break a bruised reed. Right. Which is a plant. He won't, just because it's bruised, He won't just pull it out. And so what I see in Christ is not just Him, paying a debt or going to court for me. What I see more so is He is suffering with me. And I need a God like that. I can follow that God. I can follow this Lord because He knows about me. He can connect to me. He gets what it's like. And I can't have, it's having a God that is too high or too untouchable. How can I have that? I'm not worthy. There's no way. I knew that. There was something in me that felt profoundly aware that either I've got you wrong or you got me wrong. And it was waking up to the best thing I could do is I could talk about me. And I knew that I'd gotten it wrong for a long time.
Right.
And so
what is beautiful, and There are a lot of other things I want to visit with you. I want to hear from you because in some of our conversations, which we won't go into today, because there are some things I really want to go deeper. One is you are coming out, you are in this world, you are part of the communities, and then you become part of a church life in the church that you were before you came into the Episcopal Church. But something I want to hear more, but we will do that in another session. But something that you shared today that fascinated me is about your awareness that you may have the IQ or you may have intellectual capacity to understand, but then your EQ or your SQ, and I want to say one more thing to that. I want to say even FQ, which is a feeling questions. When we think about that, to be able to feel God, to experience God, and also to recognize God and the emotions, all of those things are things that matters, because God is fully present in our lives, even through the hardest, toughest, saddest, suffering moments, as you just shared. That's the God you are able to connect, not a God who is mighty and powerful, who wears a golden crown, but a God who wears a thorn, a crown of thorns, a God who is crucified, not someone who is discarded and abandoned. That because it resonates with our life. That's who.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm hearing, what you're saying. And there are things that you shared. I want to look into, hear more about. Somewhere in our conversation earlier, you had mentioned about, today you mentioned about the rebranding of yourself. And then you talked about this Gothic arch story, which is fascinating. But I want to go into the Gothic arch. You're rebranding yourself, understanding of your IQ, SQ, EQ scenario, all of those pieces, because they are all incredibly beautiful and powerful. And your experience in the Pentecostal church, speaking in tongues, the power of the Holy Spirit, the gift of the Holy Spirit, God of mercy, they are all incredibly beautiful. For some reason, with all our rationalization, we have let go of the spiritual biblical principles that will guide us to be better people, loving, kind, forgiving, accepting. And so there is a storyline I heard. That's the reason why I wanted to visit with you in this conversation, because I think a lot of people may want to hear that in all your brokenness, you still can go down to the valley where the waters run, where the trees grow, which is a place of humility. And that's where God is. At the end of the day, Jesus made himself humble enough to come down to us. So when you talked earlier sometime back to me, that Gothic arch, fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And I want us to stop there and say, let's come back to the Gothic arch, and let's come back to the SQ, IQ, FQ, EQ scenario. Let's come back to the rebranding, how God rebrands us. It's not I rebranding, it's God who rebrands us at the end of the day.
The Lord defends, in him we trust. The Lord defends, in him we trust. The Lord is our strength, in him we trust. The Lord defends, in him we trust. The Lord is our strength, in him we trust. The Lord is our salvation, our refuge and our song. From Zion comes redemption, to him we still belong. The Lord defends, in him we trust. The Lord is our strength, in him we trust. The Lord defends, in him we trust. The Lord is our strength, in him we trust. Oh, let his people now rejoice. Lift up your hearts, lift up your voice.